if you're actually okay with the people in Congress and people in power, if you're okay with them printing money over and over and over and making your money that you work for less and less valuable, and you just step back and think, oh, that's okay, what's wrong with you? With Bitcoin rising above $100,000 per coin for the first time in weeks today, Canada's anti-Bitcoin Prime Minister is resigning, with a pro-Bitcoin candidate likely to replace him. And even bigger news that will make even the most closeted, bearish bear boy admit defeat and acknowledge that the pump to pump all pumps is about to begin. So if you understand that before the mega pump, sometimes you need a tiny pump, hit that like and subscribe. And without any further ado, let's completely and absolutely dump into Bitcoin, where we see on this daily candle, we have gotten above $100,000 for the first time per Bitcoin in weeks. Technically, things are shaping up big time for this to be a continued massive reach around pump episode big time, but also fundamentally, guys, I don't know if you've been paying attention. This is quite literally the biggest setup that we've seen, the biggest pre-pump, as I like to call it, that has ever existed. And I think things are only about to get bigger from here. If we take a look, obviously, as we talked about yesterday, MicroStrategy did announce that they acquired another 1,000 Bitcoin for about $100 million at about a $94,000 per coin basis. And this isn't just big. Let's take a look at what Michael Saylor has just said today. 60 billionaires already hold Bitcoin. The other 2,700 will soon join, and if each of them invests just $500 million, that's over $1 trillion flowing in. There's only 2.2 million Bitcoin left on exchanges, basically pushing Bitcoin up to right around $1 million per coin instantly. With supply vanishing, FOMO will do the rest. I've been trying to paint a picture of just how quickly this can happen when it happens, because I'm very convinced that this is coming way sooner than people expect. But primarily, in many ways, the price movement is not a slow, gradual climb up. More than ever, this cycle, specifically because of all of the institutions and nations that are now getting involved, not just retail. In fact, retail largely, compared to previous bull markets, is nowhere to be seen. Every gigantic previous Bitcoin bull market has been driven by retail. This time, completely different. And I think that even in the past, retail bull markets, largely, these pumps would happen like very quickly. It would be kind of boring for weeks and weeks and months, maybe gradual moves up or gradual moves down. But in bull markets, ultimately, that final giga pump wave usually happened in a very short amount of time. In fact, most of Bitcoin's biggest price movements occur in less than like 5% of Bitcoin's, like in terms of time. Most of it happens in a very small amount of time. And more than ever, I think that now institutions getting in, this is going to be even more true than ever before. And specifically, I want to also cover this. Canada's pro-Bitcoin opposition leader, Pierre, is expected to lead his party to victory at the next election after Trudeau has resigned today, another strategic Bitcoin reserve possibly incoming. We see the world is rapidly becoming a world dominated by those who support Bitcoin. Canada is moments away from joining the USA as a pro-Bitcoin nation. And David Bailey on X just highlighting that Pierre will likely deliver a strategic Bitcoin reserve to Canada as well. And as I talked about yesterday, once these dominoes start falling, once this snowball starts snowballing, it's going to happen so fast. You're not going to have time to react. We have had the opportunity to front run this thing for the past 16 years, meaning you've had the opportunity to buy Bitcoin before nations worldwide and before massive amounts of institutions started buying in. You've had that opportunity for the past 16 years. And that window is so small right now. That window is closing in rapidly. And people, even Bitcoin haters basically, even people that have been so doubtful on it. You're seeing this over the last few days and over the last few weeks. You're seeing even people like them start to crack and start to think to themselves, wow, maybe I was wrong, okay? For the first bull market in history, as I'm about to talk about actually right here, Bitcoin on-chain retail demand is nosediving to historic lows, despite Bitcoin basically at $100,000 per coin. This run is being driven by institutions, ETFs, and nations. For this reason, you cannot compare this cycle to past cycles. So what does that mean? As I just said, these previous Bitcoin bull markets, which have been insane, explosive, very profitable, very lucrative opportunities where price has gone up a lot, they were driven by retail. This is the very first bull market from beginning from the beginning of this cycle that now we are, and again, it's not even a lot. We don't even have a lot of nations, or, I mean, the ETFs are breaking records, so the ETFs are doing really good. But in terms of like what percentage of nations around the world have a Bitcoin strategic reserve or like investing in Bitcoin? I mean, what is it? Just El Salvador and like Argentina's president's pro crypto, and very, very soon, in just a few weeks, it'll be the USA and potentially Canada as well. But like, what percent of the world has nations that are buying Bitcoin? Like, I don't know, 1-2%, like basically nobody. And institutions, again, are still very skeptical, even though that's changing over the last year. Institutions, especially people like Larry Fink at BlackRock, over the last 12 months have become very bullish on it. This is still very new. This cycle is unlike anything we've ever seen. And as even this top post right here says, if I zoom in right here, this cycle is different. That's why you can't apply the identical rules and tactics like previous ones. Agreed, this will also have its implications on alt season, as Bitcoin institutional liquidity will not flow into alts. So we have some mixed opinions there. I personally think alts will do well, but honestly, if you're somebody that's completely invested in alts and no Bitcoin, as I've always said, I think you should probably have some Bitcoin. But the point is, this cycle is unlike anything we've ever seen before. It is fundamentally different. And so if you're listening to people on YouTube and on X, and these people that are just showing you silly charts of like some crashes from 60 years ago, trying to compare it to Bitcoin and saying the same thing will happen. First of all, those people have been doing that for years and they've always been wrong. But the point is, you have to start actually zooming out and understanding what's happening. Sometimes what the most likely scenario that happens is actually the simplest one. And it can't get much more simple than this. Nations are buying Bitcoin. Institutions are buying. The Bitcoin ETFs are the most successful ETFs in history. People are tired of having their capital devalued. They work 40 years. They work 40 years so that their money, by the time they retired, has lost half of its value by, keeping it in something like the US dollar. People are tired of it. And the more they actually understand and research how unique, revolutionary, and beneficial Bitcoin actually is, the more people are buying it. And the bigger picture is that, as I've just said, we have never seen a Bitcoin bull market completely driven by institutions or nations, because again, they're like very new to this. 4 years ago, it wasn't even possible. Here we are in 2025, the very beginning of 2025, and it is happening. I say it all the time, but it's never been more true. You're not bullish enough. You physically can't be, because again, 99% of people are comparing this to previous cycles and all of whatever. What if you're just not bullish enough? What if you just have too much PTSD from FTX in the last bear market? What if we actually go higher than most people think? Are you prepared for that scenario? Because I think most people have been preparing for the wrong thing. Most people have been preparing to take profit in the next month or something and leave the market for another 4 years. What if it goes the other way? Are you prepared for that? I just think it's too obvious. We also see the entire fiat economy with all of its finance titans is based on currency designed to rob its users, and so cannot outperform a neutral internet protocol which only does one thing: not get debased. Upgrade to Bitcoin if you don't like getting robbed. I mean, a nice summary of what I basically just said. Like, it's once you understand it, it becomes the most obvious thing, and that's why so many people have slowly been shifting to Bitcoin. I mean, it's crazy. The only people that I've ever talked to, this has never changed. The only people that I've ever talked to that think Bitcoin is a scam or they think it's useless and has no value are people that don't understand it. Just people in general that tend to form opinions without researching things. They're not intelligent people, in my opinion. They're not people that I would ever want to take advice from. And again, the people that I actually learn from and take advice from are people that I consider intelligent. And it just so happens that most of them are also invested in Bitcoin and they see why it has value. Coincidence or not, I mean, I'll let you decide that. We also see that 657,000 Bitcoin will be mined in the next 4 years. 600,000 has already left exchanges since February of 2023. Supply is drying up, institutions are thirsty for Bitcoin, and demand is climbing rapidly. When scarcity meets insatiable demand, the result is inevitable. You can see this blue line being the exchange reserves of Bitcoin and the white being price. You see an inverse correlation here. We haven't even seen the true supply crunch yet, but when we see it, it's going to be massive. And I think people are going to be shocked by what actually happens to this price. People are still, I personally think people are going to be shocked. They're going to be like, so confused. Like, how could I have missed this? How was it so obvious? We still haven't hit that moment in like the universal like zeitgeist. Like people that are not in crypto still, I mean, most of the world is not invested. Most of the world just thinks, again, they have silly opinions of it because they don't actually understand anything about it. But we haven't reached that critical point yet where it becomes ubiquitous. It becomes a universally accepted thing, like the internet is now, right? The internet, everybody's addicted to the internet, whether it's a 10-year-old on their iPad or your 60-year-old aunt posting AI pictures that they think are real and they don't really understand what they're talking about. And according to Willy Woo, somebody is really hungry for these newfangled Bitcoin. This cycle has seen liquidity of 3 million Bitcoin on exchanges and equilibrium of sellers and buyers, but not anymore. Almost 250,000 Bitcoin got scooped. MicroStrategy is almost 200,000 of this. There's other whales out there shifting the equilibrium as well. And again, this is just showing the supply of Bitcoin compared to the price. The supply is running out. There is going to be a supply crunch. And that's why I'm trying to buy as much of it as I can, as quickly as I can. And that's what all of the people that I know that understand Bitcoin are doing as well. Michael Saylor being the best example of this, very successfully doing the same thing. We see that Eric Balkunas says he would have predicted a rough patch for the Bitcoin ETFs, given that the drop below 100,000 was pretty long overdue, but we've seen it. But he said, no, they roared back with nearly $1 billion in volume Friday, which lifted the 1 week to net positive net. The scoring was spread around to these ETFs continue to break records. I don't see that changing anytime soon. Kevin Svensson also comparing Bitcoin in the last bull market to now with the all-time high breakout, retest of the 50-day EMA, and then another run incoming. And you can see, I fully agree. I think we're about to see this next leg up for Bitcoin. I think it's basically identical, but this time, honestly, I think it's possible it's even stronger, fundamentally. Okay, we're not, in the past, I've been doing this for 8 years. In the past, I spent a lot of time talking about technical analysis and showing charts, and most of my videos were doing that. And I've shifted lately to just more so covering fundamentally what is happening. One, because there's massive fundamental things happening. And two, it basically, yeah, I mean, I guess actually one covers it. There's a lot of things happening fundamentally. And in fact, over the past year, these things that are happening are extremely positive. Basically, the best case scenarios we could be asking for fundamentally for crypto to start doing well. And we're seeing that happen. And people were skeptical of looking at charts and lines and saying, oh, none of that matters. It only matters about the fundamentals. Now, when the fundamentals are staring you in the face, telling you, oh, actually, this is insanely bullish, you would think everybody is now really bullish, right? No. Human psychology is doing what human psychology does. Now those people are just making up other scenarios why Bitcoin's actually not bullish and why none of this is good, right? Somehow. These people, I mean, they do mental gymnastics to, they'll do it till the end of time. They have no common sense whatsoever. The point is, fundamentally, we are in the best fundamental setup that we have ever had. Now is not the time to put on your bearish little hat and start going around telling people that, oh, top is in every other week, like they've also been doing for the past 2 years anyway and been wrong the entire time. Fundamentally, it makes no sense. So if you don't like charts, that's fine. You think they're unreliable, that's fine. If you are that same person saying fundamentals mattered, but now you're telling me that fundamentals don't matter, wake up. I mean, get your head out of your butt. At a certain point, you have to understand, and you have to step back into reality at some point. You can't live in fantasy land forever. We also see JP Morgan saying Bitcoin is becoming a structurally important part of our portfolios. I remember just, not that long ago, and for most of my crypto experience over the last years, JP Morgan has not been saying things like this. In fact, they've been heavily anti-Bitcoin. But the thing is, on a long enough time frame, everybody is going to be pro-Bitcoin. It's not going to be an opinion thing anymore. Just like, well, actually, I guess not everybody. I mean, the internet exists. Are there people out there saying that the internet is like a fad or something? Probably. We're talking about like less than 1% of people, like a fraction of a fraction. The point is, there will always be somebody that has a problem with something. There will always be somebody that has a contrary opinion to even objective fact, just because they want to be different. But soon, you're not gonna see the amount of resistance we see from a lot of people from Bitcoin soon in the very near future. I mean, if people understood how much better of an alternative it is to something like the US dollar, where they quite literally have these 80-year-old people in Congress and making these laws that continuously print more money, that make the money that you work for every single day less and less valuable, so that you can buy less and less things every year that goes by, simply because they are choosing to devalue the currency that you're working for, and that doesn't make you mad, what's wrong with you? Like, wake up. It's just Stockholm syndrome. If you're actually okay with the people in Congress and people in power, if you're okay with them printing money over and over and over and making your money that you work for less and less valuable, and you just step back and think, oh, that's okay, what's wrong with you? You're genuinely like not a serious person if you think that's okay, especially now when you have an option to opt out of that. And you can invest in something that historically has only helped and held value and done better to negate this system and actually store your value, and not only like store your value, but actually exponentially increase your value. Granted, if you look at it on a short time frame, it's kind of volatile, right? But if you zoom out and you actually look at what Bitcoin has been doing year after year, a protocol backed by math, not by politicians, and you think that you would rather just default to just letting 80-year-olds in Congress determine how much money your money is worth, or how much your money is worth, you're delusional. You have to do some research. You're on the wrong side of history. And soon you're going to be, well, actually you are already financially on the wrong side, but you're just financially going to be worse and worse off year after year after year. That's fine. If you want to have less money, go ahead. Like, that's fine if that's your choice. Somebody has to have less money, I guess. But if you want to like start actually doing better, then start learning about Bitcoin and actually start understanding it. And stop being a baby. Really, that's the best advice I could give. Stop being a baby. We also see that Cantor Fitzgerald CEO Howard Lutnick explaining how he has hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of exposure to Bitcoin, and soon it will be billions. Every time Bitcoin dips, I'm going to be the buyer, he says. And this is the strategy and the outlook people have slowly been shifting towards. Not just people, ultra high net worth people. We're talking about now, as I've said, this is the very first Bitcoin bull cycle where now billionaires get it. Slowly, not all of them. As I just said, only about 60 of the 2,700 in the world are getting it. But slowly, it's going to very quickly change. How much was it a couple years ago, right? Just in the last few years, it was way less than 60. The point is, you've had the opportunity to front run this for years and years, and that window is closing. And if you don't want to take part in it, fine. But the point is, you will be taking part in it eventually. You will be buying Bitcoin eventually. The question is, are you going to be buying it at $100,000 per coin, or are you going to be buying it at $5 million per coin? It's your choice. Because again, you're not going to be able to afford one Bitcoin at $5 million per coin, 99.999% of people watching. However, you can buy a little fraction of it. Maybe you can buy 0.00001 of a Bitcoin. And the longer you wait, the tinier that number gets, meaning the longer you wait, the less Bitcoin you'll be able to buy. Maybe you'll get lucky in a bear market and scoop the absolute bottom, but maybe you won't. Maybe it'll just keep going up. Maybe institutions and nations will be fighting over it, and by the time we get the next bear market, it'll crash massively all the way down to $800,000 per coin. Maybe that'll be the low of the next bear market. Who knows? If nations and billionaires continue, or actually really start, because they've barely even started yet. But if they start buying Bitcoin, who knows where the next bottom is going to be? Do you think it'll be at $30,000 per coin like some people in the comments believe? I don't think so. Hey, anything's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible. Is it likely? No. Because the people that are calling for a $30,000 Bitcoin are the same people that said Bitcoin spot ETFs would never be approved, the same people that said Bitcoin would never hit 100,000 to begin with, just people that are wrong. Objectively, people that don't really understand what's happening. And so just looking at this chart on the daily chart for Bitcoin, you can see that Bitcoin is now above the 21 and 50-day moving averages. You can see as well, this MACD for Bitcoin on the daily chart has crossed bullish. And I just personally think that the price of Bitcoin has the chance, even in the very short term, to start running as we lead into a likely possible Bitcoin strategic reserve coming, right? Is Canada now going to be jumping on board as well? Is Canada going to be moving towards a Bitcoin strategic reserve now that Trudeau is not going to be the prime minister anymore? He was very anti-Bitcoin. He's gone now, right? He's not going to be making any decisions. And the most likely person to replace him is somebody who is pro-Bitcoin. Hey, we're seeing this happen. El Salvador, Argentina, now the US, potentially Canada. Slowly people are going to wake up, but it's going to be slow at first, and then it's going to happen extremely, extremely fast. And get signed up with Femex or BITUNIX below if you know why Bitcoin altcoins are a trade as well. There is currently a $50,000 USDT trading competition on Femex if you sign up with my link below, if you want to take advantage of that. Without any further ado,